kids even had parties to watch it with friends. After dozens and dozens of seasons, episodes still airing, it was hailed by critics for its intelligent writing, diverse cast, and complex character relationships. TV spin-offs often fail, sometimes before they even air. Did you know that a TV spin-off about Dwight Schrute was almost made but never got past a one-off episode of The Office? And who remembers the Friends spin-off, Joey? But what's the best spin-off? I bet that you'd be shocked at just how many of your favorite shows are actually spin-offs. In fact, I guarantee you won't believe which beloved TV icon actually originated on a different show than you remember. Stick around to see if your favorite TV show is on the list. I'm Mike with List 25, and here are 25 best TV spin-offs that outshined the original series. 25. Star Trek: The Next Generation. Following up a genre-defining show is no easy feat, and that show being Star Trek makes it all that much harder. The Next Generation was the first live-action Star Trek spin-off, and if it wasn't successful, then we wouldn't be seeing the continued shows we do today. Next Generation was a chance to capture a new generation of fans and capitalize on the success of the original show. They achieved that wide success across 7 seasons and 178 episodes. There were even 4 separate movies made for the show that were all released in theaters. It could be argued that The Next Generation is the reason why we have all the movies and shows of Star Trek today. 24. Dexter's Laboratory. The Dexter's Laboratory, or Laboratory, like many other hit Cartoon Network shows of the late 90s, were a byproduct and spin-off of one show. That show was a Hanna-Barbera short film anthology series called What a Cartoon. The show consisted of 22-minute episodes that featured 3 7-minute animated shorts. It was originally created as a way to allow animators and writers to take back creative control of animation. Dexter's Laboratory was a huge success, and was easily a classic that would go on to influence the future direction and animation style that all Cartoon Network shows would have. There was also Cartoon Fridays. Remember that one. 23. The Powerpuff Girls. The Powerpuff Girls, like Dexter's Laboratory, came from the anthology show What a Cartoon. And if Dexter's Lab wasn't the top show at Cartoon Network, then it was the Powerpuff Girls. The Powerpuff Girls had a similar impact and importance to Dexter's Laboratory, but the Powerpuff Girls' legacy may last a bit longer, as it had a movie with a theatrical release, and it's been recently revived. Also, it's Powerpuff, not Powder Puff. Still see people thinking that. 22. Adventure Time. Adventure Time is somewhat of a modern classic in kids animation. Finn the Human and Jake the Dog have become household names and icons in the animation industry ever since Adventure Time first aired in 2010. The show was originally a short film that aired on Nicktoons on a show called Random Cartoons that acted as an anthology series, much like What a Cartoon for Cartoon Network. The episode, titled Adventure Time, fittingly, aired in 2007, and while the design of the characters isn't the same, the episode does act as a pilot to Adventure Time, which debuted 3 years later. 21. The Yogi Bear Show. These days, we all fondly remember Hanna-Barbera cartoons for their wide variety of amazing characters and shows. Huckleberry Hound, Tom and Jerry, and the Flintstones, just to name a few, and even Yogi Bear. Yogi Bear originally appeared as a supporting character on the Huckleberry Hound show and quickly became a beloved character, eventually outshining the titular character of Huckleberry Hound. They gave Yogi his own show, and it outperformed the Huckleberry Hound show and was widely more popular. Hey, boo-boo. Let's eat that picnic basket. But he's like, but Yogi, he's very down here. 20. The Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy. If you grew up in the early 2000s and watched Cartoon Network, then you've likely heard of and watched quite a bit of The Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy. But did you know it was a spin-off? Or else it wouldn't be on this list. Billy and Mandy were originally a side segment on the show Grim and Evil, which was about a whole slew of characters, including the 3 titular characters from Grim Adventures. Grim and Evil only aired 2 seasons before it was cancelled. Grim Adventures began airing solo episodes alongside Grim and Evil and aired from 2001 to 2007, and it was a staple of Cartoon Network's programming for nearly its entire run. It even won 2 Emmys for Outstanding Individual Achievement in Animation in 2006 and 2007. 19. Dragon Ball Z. It's very common for shows, specifically anime like Dragon Ball, to have many different iterations across many different names, but the wide critical success and fan appreciation of Dragon Ball Z is way too great to ignore on this occasion. The original Dragon Ball ended in 1989, and Dragon Ball Z aired less than 10 days later. There was a time jump of 5 years, but aside from that, it picks up pretty much right where the original left off. DBZ ran for 291 episodes before ending in 1996. There have been other continuations of the series, but none has been as successful or as loved as Dragon Ball Z. Dragon, rock the dragon, Dragon Ball Z. Krillin. Krillin is still my favorite character from Dragon Ball. 18. The Colbert Report. Before his time on The Late Show, Stephen Colbert played an exaggerated stereotype of a right-wing Republican on the comedic news show The Colbert Report. It was hailed for its intelligent approach to news and its cleverly written humor. But even before that, Colbert played the same character on The Daily Show as a foil to Jon Stewart. The character was beloved, and it eventually launched Stephen Colbert's wider career and got him The Late Show on primetime television. 17. Batman Beyond. It's hard to claim that any show could outshine Batman the Animated Series, as it made a huge impact on Batman as a character. But Batman Beyond aired right alongside the many DC superhero shows at the time. It held its own against established and beloved characters and stories, while it was coming with new characters and villains for a new Batman in the future. It's a cult classic, and had tons of moments that would become classic Batman moments, and it even spawned its own comic series. 16. Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. No, I'm not talking about the cartoon or the famous sitcom. I'm talking about the more dramatic Netflix series starring Kiernan Shipka as the titular character, Sabrina the Witch. It was originally conceived as a spin-off of Riverdale, the CW show based on characters made famous by the Archie comics. It was passed by CW, but was picked up as a Netflix series. Riverdale has gotten heavy criticism for its often cringeworthy writing, over-the-top performances, and awkward dialogue. And while Chilling Adventures takes a similar approach, it was received far better than Riverdale by critics. 15. Alvin and the Chipmunks. Alvin and the Chipmunks made a good name for themselves in the 80s with their high-pitched singing and crazy antics and adventures, but it was nearly 20 years prior, in the 60s, that the Chipmunks had their first show. The Alvin Show had 1 season, from 1961 to 1962. It did poorly against other cartoons at the time, and was cancelled. The Chipmunks were in a very similar form to the one they had in the 80s, and very little was changed. The show aired 7 seasons, and they made multiple movies based on the show. I guess singing chipmunks was a little ahead of audiences in the 60s. I told the witch doctor. Great movie. I haven't seen it in years. 14. Kenan and Kel. While the show featuring Kenan Thompson and Kel Mitchell doesn't have much in common with famed sketch comedy show All That, it is officially considered a spin-off. It sees a lot of the same stars making appearances and playing similar characters. The show only lasted for 4 seasons, but it had a lasting impact on the audience, as it's still what Kenan Thompson is best known for, despite being a long-standing member of the cast of SNL. 13. Good Burger. While this spin-off isn't a TV show, the movie is based off a skit on All That features Kenan and Kel, so you know what? I'm making an exception for this one. Much like the similar spin-off Kenan and Kel, this movie stars Kenan and Kel. Kel is the main star here, as his character plays a moronic fast food employee. Similar to Kenan and Kel, it's what the two actors are best known for, and as the actors have rekindled their relationship later in life, there are plans to make a sequel in the coming years. Welcome to Good Burger, home of the Good Burger. May I take your order? Oh, my childhood. Oh, this whole list is my childhood. 12. Pinky and the Brain. One is a genius, the other's insane. The story of Pinky and the Brain revolves around two experiment rats trying to take over the world. The characters are famous and icons in Warner Bros. Animation, but before we were dancing to the sound of their own theme song, we watched them on an equally famous animated show, The Animaniacs. Pinky and the Brain won multiple daytime Emmys, and the characters still make occasional cameos in mainstream adult animation like The Simpsons. There are even talks of reviving the series for streaming. What was the Pinky and the Brain and Larry? There we go. Pinky and the Brain and Larry. Pinky and the Brain and Larry. 11. Saved by the Bell. Before Saved by the Bell became synonymous with the early 90s, the characters got their start in the Disney show Good Morning Miss Bliss. The show centered around a 6th grade teacher. It got one season and was canceled shortly after it aired its 13th episode. Despite the original's lackluster performance, there were some elements that worked, and they completely overhauled the show, shifting focus to the kids of the class and aging them to 8th grade instead. Just like that, Saved by the Bell was born and was widely successful, getting 4 seasons and a couple of movies. I think they made the right call. 10. The Jeffersons. The Jeffersons wasn't the first spin-off of the show All in the Family, but it was the longest running and the most successful. The show focused on the lives of an African-American family living in Manhattan. The show never really found a comfortable time slot, but despite that, it lasted for 11 years and was widely popular. It was in the top 30 and top 10 best-rated shows for the majority of the time it was on air, but it was abruptly canceled after the 11th season, and most of the cast didn't find out until they heard the news from the paper or friends. 9. Laverne and Shirley. Laverne and Shirley is a spin-off of Happy Days, and it features the reappearance of the titular characters and their adventures in the late 1950s. It aired after Happy Days and stayed on the air for 8 seasons. While it was airing, it was the #1 show for 2 seasons and outperformed Happy Days, both by critics and in the ratings. After its 5th season, the show started to wane off in popularity and never quite regained it. But it doesn't change the impact that it had on television. It did air as reruns throughout the late 70s and early 80s before eventually going off the air after the end of its 8th season. 8. NCIS. NCIS has had dozens of its own spin-offs, and the main show has been running for, let me check, 20 years now, so it's hard to believe that it was a spin-off of anything. People often forget that this hit procedural crime drama was actually a spin-off of legal military drama, JAG. No matter how you feel about largely procedural shows, it's hard to argue with the results of making NCIS as a spin-off. 7. Family Matters. This show revolves around the loving Winslow family that appeared as characters in the less famous sitcom, Perfect Strangers. While the early seasons were mostly about the main family and their relationship with each other, the show gained mainstream popularity for Steve Urkel. Yes, that one, and yes, he did do that. Steve Urkel was originally supposed to be a one-off character, but he became reoccurring. Toward the end of the show, episodes almost entirely revolved around Urkel and his adventures. Whether people were into the classic family love or a suspender-wearing nerd, the show was a huge hit, outliving and outperforming Perfect Strangers. And you know what? Carl Winslow, best TV dad. I know people are probably going to say Uncle Phil, but he was TV uncle. I think Carl. I think Uncle Phil, Carl. I think. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. Who do you think is the best TV dad? 6. The Simpsons. While The Simpsons have solidified their spot as America's favorite cartoon family, and while it's difficult to imagine a time without the show, they were at one point just a smaller part of a variety sketch show. Matt Groening, who created The Simpsons, originally made the family for a series of short clips and sketches for The Tracy Ullman Show. It was a variety and sketch comedy show in the 80s, and The Simpsons had some of their very first adventures there before getting their own primetime show. After dozens and dozens of seasons, episodes still airing, movies, merchandise, and even a theme park land, I'd say the spin-off was a good idea. 5. Mork and Mindy. Everyone loves the feel-good comedy of the alien Mork, played by a young Robin Williams, and Mindy, played by Pam Dauber. We all know and love Robin Williams' amazing and groundbreaking performance as Mork from Ork, But the start of the show wasn't the first time we saw the alien. We first met Mork in the episode titled My Favorite Orkin from the hit show Happy Days. The episode was such a hit that they made a spin-off with the character, albeit with a tamer sense of humor. The show is largely remembered for being one of Robin Williams' breakout hits, and his comedic style brought the show multiple Daytime Emmy nominations. Nanu nanu. 4. Daria. Yes, the cynical teenage girl with a dry wit was once a recurring character on the show Beavis and Butthead before she got her own show that lasted for 5 seasons in the 90s and early 2000s. It wasn't worked on by the creator of Beavis and Butthead, but he did allow the network to make the show. It gained a cult following and became a well-respected and praised show for its interesting characters, unique charm and wit, and clever writing. Daria has even been placed in the top 50 cartoon characters by magazines. 3. She-Ra and the Princess of Power, 2018. Yes, it's technically a reboot of a spin-off, but I say that is enough to make the list. She-Ra is originally a spin-off character from He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. She got her own show in 1985, and that show was rebooted in 2018 as a Netflix series. It was hailed by critics for its intelligent writing, diverse cast, and complex character relationships. It was nominated for multiple Daytime Emmys and won multiple media awards. 2. All Grown Up. Everyone loves the Rugrats. It's an animation classic. It's a show about the misadventures of a bunch of brave babies. The original ended in 2004, but 3 years earlier, they did a Rugrats special named All Growed Up for its 10th anniversary that showed what the babies would be like 10 years down the road. The special was Rugrats' highest rated episode. Kids even had parties to watch it with friends. Naturally, Nickelodeon Studios wanted to capitalize on its success, and in 2004, All Grown Up aired as a continuation of the special. It dealt with typical preteen teen drama issues like fitting in school and puberty. While it didn't do as well as their hit shows like SpongeBob and Jimmy Neutron, and had mixed reviews, it was among Nickelodeon's top shows for its entire 5-season run, and was featured in several hit episodes compilation DVDs. 1. Frasier. You know I had to say it at some point, so here it is. Frasier is now a favorite binge-worthy TV show that stands right along household rerun favorite shows like The Office and even Friends. But it was at one point a spin-off. Frasier Crane originally showed up as a side character in the show Cheers. He was a fan favorite and eventually became one of the main characters. Cheers would eventually end, but Frasier lived on in the show we now love. It was a hit, and it lasted 11 seasons before they ended the show. For a while, many still held Cheers in higher regard, but the resurgence of Frasier on streaming services has reintroduced a whole new generation of Frasier lovers. And I'm not kidding, it is a smart show, it is a fun show. If you've never seen Frasier, do yourself a favor. I think it's on Paramount Plus. It's gotta be. CBS, was it? No, Peacock? One of the two. Paramount, I think it's on Peacock. It was an NBC show, it's gotta be on Peacock. So, although Universal and Nickelodeon, Universal NBC, it's either on Peacock or Paramount Plus. One of those. Do yourself a favor, go watch Frasier. So, did you watch any of these shows? What other amazing spin-offs did we miss? Let us know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, you will love the opposite. 25 worst TV spin-offs of all time. Also, don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and check out our social medias. Links in the description. Thank you guys for watching. I love you all. And as always, I'll see you next time. Hey baby, I hear the blues are calling, tossed salad and scrambled eggs. Mercy.